So what kind of impact do you think you've done, or your work have done, or the people you've been working with?
Well, let me go back to action anthropology. There's a story I would
looking at the time.
I'd like to share with us. Karl Schlesier, he was a German who got a position at the University of Wichita, Kansas. And he knew that the Southern Cheyenne, Wichita is on the territory of the Southern Cheyenne, who call themselves Tsitsista. Most names we know are not the names they use themselves. So he went there, talked to their spiritual leader, the arrow keeper, said, I'm a professor of anthropology now in Wichita, and I'd like to be of assistance. So maybe I can encourage my students to come down and get advice from you. They listened, and then he went home. And he gave them his address. He said, here's my phone number, anytime. Half a year went by, a year went by, nothing. And then he had a dream. He heard a drum in his dream, and he saw a painted face. And he thought, well, that's weird. So he went back to the Cheyenne and told them about their dream. And then they said, okay, I think we can trust you. The face painting which appeared in your dream was never pictured in any documents. So we will work with you.
Okay.
And from that time on, students came down, and the first case was Bear Butte, a sacred mountain to the northern periphery of the Black Hills in South Dakota. That's where Bear Butte is. And the government of South Dakota wanted to turn it into a tourist attraction. And so the Cheyenne and the Lakota wanted to go to court, and the Schlesier's students helped them to prepare the court case. And then it was, both parties met, and so a paved road goes up to the mountain, and there is a gate, and somebody is in the gate and tells everybody who wants to go up, be aware that some people might be on a vision quest up there, respect them. And so it's a bridge. And I interviewed the arrow keeper for a radio program. And Schlesier's, I told you Schlesier, Karl Schlesier, German, and his wife is from Düsseldorf. And she went home to visit her parents, and Sunday morning she turns on the radio, and the first thing she hears is the arrow keeper.
Okay.
So, circles, you know, when you are among indigenous people, you look for circles. Impact, you asked about impact. I have a little thing here. You might remember in the 80s, there was a campaign against the clubbing of baby seals, which resulted in a boycott of seal fur. That means that the Inuit who were eating a seal were not able to sell the fur. And the working group at the United Nations at this time had a big delegation of people from the Arctic to talk about this issue. And their main complaint was that environmentalists are white city people, and no dialogue with indigenous people how a campaign might affect their culture, their way of life. And for a magazine I was working for, Natur, I had the opportunity, a double page where I could, it was an opinion page, and my title was, you know, we have in German, we had, I must say, for indigenous people, we said Naturvölker. When you translate it, it means natural people, which is not the same. And so Naturvölker at that time was the term. And then the title I chose was Schützt die Naturvölker vor den Naturschützern. So protect indigenous people from environmentalists. It was meant to be provocative. And then I left the office and I was traveling when they did the final layout, and the N did not go in anymore. But I was away to help to find a new title, so they put Greenpeace in. Protect natural people from Greenpeace.
Yeah, you mentioned Greenpeace in your article.
Yeah.
So we know.
Yeah, so Greenpeace was mentioned. So I called the Greenpeace office in Germany, at that time the largest office. I said, look, this happened. So you better prepare an answer right away so it can be in the next issue. They prepared an answer which was okay. You could tell that they were kind of surprised with this. Years later, when I organized the World Uranium Hearing, I approached Greenpeace for financial assistance. And the director at that time came in the room. He didn't know I was there. I was talking to somebody else. And he said, by the way, that might interest you. After your article, we changed our policies, and whenever we have a campaign which involves indigenous people, we have a representative sitting with us on the table. And then I thought, see, sometimes you have to step across a line, which is the line of political correctness or the law or whatever. But if you remain within limits, you might have no impact. And the moment you are a little bit, if you do something unexpected, stepping across the line, and then things get moving. Any questions?
It's time for questions, actually. We run out of time. I can see on Kara's phone that it's 45. So you're most welcome if you want to ask questions, to know more. If there's something wasn't clear to you, please feel free.
Would you say you have like a methodology in field work? Or
A methodology in
A
fieldwork.
methodology. When I do an interview, I like to hang around for a while. Before and after. And I'm not a typical journalist who comes, does his thing and leaves. So it's not that I call this a methodology, it's just that I feel more comfortable when I'm around people and can be part of their lives. And like when a professor sends his students to the Cheyenne, I like also when I'm there, I like to ask, is there, in my profession, can I help in any way? And so Akwesasne Notes always said, well, after your trip, please don't forget to send us photographs, because you met people who might play a role in our paper. And so Akwesasne Notes was always my first and my last stop. And when I started, I didn't realize how important the world of indigenous people will become. John Mohawk, he was a Seneca, one of the 6 nations of the Haudenosaunee. He said at our very first meeting, he said, green will become a political color. The war of the future will be between destroyers of nature and defenders of nature. And what you call democracy, we would not call democracy. So that was very inspiring. And when I look at our privileged way of life, you know, we plunder all around the world to maintain our way of life. And by doing this, we destroy the basis of life. It's so, such a lack of common sense, isn't it?
It looks like it, yeah.
I have a strange question. I don't know if it's because listening to you, I have the impression to speak with my predecessor, with René Fürst.
I met him.
Who was in charge of the Oceania department, but much more linked with America than with Oceania. And I have the impression that, for example, Karine asked if you are an anthropologist or a journalist. I have the impression that the most important was his action. You acted through journalism as you might have acted through art or through any other discipline. And I can see the same enthusiasm that I can see when talking with René Fürst. And I was wondering if it is still possible to be so enthusiastic today, because you talk of dramatic things, but with a smile, with a hope. I was wondering if it's still possible to talk today with the same optimism, which is not the optimism, a blind optimism, but which is with a hope.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. If you would not have asked this question, it would have been one of the rare meetings without such a question.
Okay.
Most question and answer periods end with this question.
Okay.
Yeah, well, my personal my first answer is, if my work would depress me so much that I cannot smile anymore, I would stop it. And then being with indigenous people, I learned they talk about horrible things and still laugh. And then I realized that if I enjoy life, it enables me to transport this message on a level where you might be affected in a different way. Storytelling is the oldest way of handing over information. And if I come with numbers of people killed, you probably will wait for some other information which will lift you up again. And I also think theater, and from storytelling we come to theater, I think to act is a relief, and is is also a source of new energy. And I guess this is a giving and taking. And my work allows me to be with people who have so much energy. And I visited Leonard Peltier. Who of you know Leonard Peltier, who is in prison since 46 years? He's an American indigenous activist. And 46 years because he's accused of killing 2 FBI agents, and everybody knows he didn't do it, but the revenge of the FBI to keep him in jail. And I walked into the prison really depressed. Where am I going to? And I walked out uplifted because Leonard told me stories and was happy that he had a visitor. And it's amazing, you know. I mean, being with those people, I almost do not dare to be depressed because they are not. They fight. And so
you're talking of action therapy in a certain sense.
Yeah. No, I feel very privileged that I found a way to combine journalism with activism. And also, I must say that I have colleagues in the journalist world. After 5 years of being away and organizing a world conference on uranium mining, nobody said, well, you cannot be part of the radio anymore.
And why?
No, I mean, they could say, well, you have biases. You know, you are not what's... But the attitude has changed. When I was in the beginning of journalism, you had to be objective. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, don't take any sides. And I take sides. And I said, when I taught at the School of Journalism, I said, what counts is that you tell the truth, not what side you are on, and how much room you give to both sides if you are reporting about a conflict. I like Le Monde Diplomatique because they
take sides.
they give you a background and you feel like this is how journalism should be. Mm. Yeah, I have difficulties stopping.
No, it's fine.
Because it is, each question stimulates new stories.
There's something you would like to ask us as a museum staff?
Well, I said after lunch, I said to Karine, the main task for a museum of anthropology is to be a place of liveliness. And to be a museum almost became a bad word for something which is not alive. You say, this is not a museum. Mm. And so a museum with other cultures should also encourage theater and encourage experiments. And I also think that it would be nice to see if indigenous peoples are invited to put up a museum of our culture. What would they show? I'm very pleased with what I see here, except I miss uranium as a topic.
And he spotted some errors in the text, again, with names of people, for example.
You know, always when I go into an exhibition of North America, that's journalist training. You have to look at names.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get scolded by the editor if you don't spell the names right.
Yep. Well, I think we're done. If you don't have more questions. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.